Hi members and welcome to another Macro Monday. My name is Mitchell Snedden and as always I'm joined by Callum Pickering. Callum, let's get straight into it. A quick wrap up of last week. We had Philip Lowe front up to the House of Reps. Did he have anything interesting to say?
On the macroeconomic front, he really didn't say anything that we hadn't heard before in either the bank's monthly statements or in their statement on monetary policy. He did say a few interesting things about the housing market, and they're probably the most interesting comments from the perspective of our readers and viewers. He mentioned that he is concerned about house prices right now. He's fearful for his children, his three children, as they look to enter the housing market. Personally, given he earns about $1 million a year, I think they'll probably be okay.
I think they'll be fine.
I think they will too, which is a nice segue into the house price data which came out last week. Now, nationally, house prices are up by 2% to be 4% higher of the year. So they're still growing, but at nowhere near the same pace that we saw over the past 2 or 3 years. Prices in Sydney were up 2.8%, which is a pretty strong result, but we've got to remember that they fell in both the December and March quarter, so this is a little bit of a rebound for the Sydney market. House prices are strongest in Melbourne. They're up by around 8% over the year. They're pretty weak elsewhere.
Okay, now also wrapping up last week, we had a lot of meetings of central banks around the world. Anything of note that come out of that?
Well, the big one was the Federal Reserve meeting. Now, they decided not to raise rates, which was no surprise, but they did vote 7-3 to keep rates unchanged, which means that there's still an appetite for rate hikes potentially later this year. So the market sort of turned their attention to December as the possible go meeting. So it'll be interesting to see how the data develops over the next few months leading into that meeting. Now, the Bank of Japan was another important one. They met midweek and they reconfirmed their commitment to getting inflation above their 2% target. How they're going to go about that, though, is a little bit unclear at the moment. They committed to keeping long-term yield bonds at around 0%, which is a slight change from their earlier policy where they were simply buying as many Japanese assets as they could get their hands upon. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out over the next few years. As we know, Japan hasn't had a great deal of success in pushing up inflation over the past couple of decades. And based on my understanding of things, I can't see this policy change having too much effect.
Right, now looking forward from this week and out further, we've got the financial accounts coming out, we've got an RBA meeting as well, and building approvals, so plenty of data to look forward to. What are you specifically looking for?
Well, this week the financial accounts are always an interesting one. They're not typically market moving, but they do include a lot of important information on both the household and business sectors, particularly with regards to household wealth. We're always interested in that, and I'm sure our readers and viewers are no different.
So is Philip Lowe's children?
Absolutely. I'm sure they'll be watching very closely, though hopefully not as closely as their father is. Now, this week's a pretty slow week on the economic front, so we move our attention to next week where we've got the Reserve Bank meeting. Now, they're not expected to do anything with this meeting. They're very much in a wait-and-see period at the moment. They're seeing how the market and the economy is responding to those earlier cuts this year. So we'll be looking at the language that they use with regards to the exchange rate in the housing market and economic growth to see whether there's any change this month compared to last month.
Excellent. Callum, thanks for joining us, and members, we'll catch you next week on another Macro Monday.